As I attempt to build this Eiffel Tower model from pictures, I want to say that I do not have prior knowledge of the construction of the tower. Otherwise, that would be cheating. Also, keep in mind that this is for 3D printing. So, enjoy the video. The Eiffel Tower is a wrought iron lattice tower on the Champ de Mars in Paris, France. It is named after the engineer Gustave Eiffel, whose company designed and built the tower. It was constructed from 1887 to 1889 as the entrance to the 1889 World's Fair. The initial design was criticized by some France's leading artists and intellectuals, but it has become a global cultural icon in France and one of the most recognizable structures in the world. The Eiffel Tower is the most visited paid monument in the world. The tower is 324 meters tall, about 1,063 feet, about the same height as an 81-story building, and the tallest structure in Paris. Its base is square, measuring 125 meters or 410 feet on each side. During its construction, the Eiffel Tower surpassed the Washington Monument to become the tallest man-made structure in the world, a title it held for 41 years until the Chrysler Building in New York City was finished in 1930. However, due to the addition of a broadcasting aerial at the top of the tower in 1957, it is now taller than the Chrysler Building by 5.2 meters, or 17 feet. Excluding the transmitters, the Eiffel Tower is the second tallest freestanding structure in France after the Milan Viaduct. The tower has 3 levels for visitors, with restaurants on the first and second levels. The top level's upper platform is 276 meters or 906 feet above the ground, the highest observation deck accessible to the public in the European Union. Tickets can be purchased to ascend by stairs or lift to the first and second levels. The climb from ground level to the first level is over 300 steps, as is the climb from the first level to the second. Although there is a staircase to the top level, it is usually only accessible by lift. The history of the design. The wager was to study the possibility of erecting an iron tower on the Champ de Mars with a square base, 125 meters across and 300 meters tall. Out of 107 different projects, it was that of Gustave Eiffel, an entrepreneur, Maurice Koechlin, and Émile Nouguier, both engineers, and Stéphane Sylvestre, an architect, that was accepted. Émile Nouguier and Maurice Koechlin, the 2 chief engineers in Eiffel's company, had the idea for a very tall tower in June 1884. It was to be designed like a large pylon with 4 columns of latticework girders, separated at the base and coming together at the top, and joined to each other by more metal girders at regular intervals. The tower project was a bold extension of this principle up to a height of 300 meters, equivalent to the symbolic figure of 1,000 feet. On September 18, 1884, Eiffel registered a patent for a new configuration allowing the construction of metal supports and pylons capable of exceeding a height of 300 meters. In order to make the project more acceptable to public opinion, Nouguier and Koechlin commissioned the architect Stéphane Sylvestre to work on the project's appearance. Sylvestre proposed stonework pedestals to dress the legs, monumental arches to link the columns and the first level, large glass-walled halls on each level, a bulb-shaped design for the top, and various other ornamental features to decorate the whole of the structure. In the end, the project was simplified, but certain elements such as the large arches at the base were retained, which in part give it its very characteristic appearance. The curvature of the uprights is mathematically determined to offer the most efficient wind resistance possible. As Eiffel himself explains, all the cutting force of the wind passes into the interior of the leading edge uprights, Lines drawn tangential to each upright with the point of each tangent at the same height will always intersect at the second point, which is exactly the point through which passes the flow resultant from the action of the wind on that part of the tower support situated above the 2 points in question. Before coming together as a high pinnacle, the uprights appear to burst out of the ground, and in a way to be shaped by the action of the wind. The assembly of the supports began on July 1st, 1887 and was completed 22 months later. All the elements were prepared in Eiffel's factory located at Levallois-Perret on the outskirts of Paris. Each of the 18,000 pieces used to construct the tower were specifically designed and calculated, traced out with an accuracy of a tenth of a millimeter and then put together to forming new pieces around 5 meters each. A team of constructors who had worked on the great metal viaduct projects were responsible for the 150 to 300 workers on site assembling this gigantic erector set. All the metal pieces of the tower are held together by rivets, a well-refined method of construction at the time. First, the pieces were assembled in the factory using bolts, later to be replaced one by one with thermally assembled rivets, which contracted during cooling, thus ensuring a very tight fit. A team of 4 men was needed for each rivet assembled, one to heat it up, another to hold it in place, a third to shape the head, and the fourth to beat it with a sledgehammer. The uprights rest on concrete foundations installed a few meters below ground level on top of a layer of compacted gravel. Each corner edge rests on its own supporting block, applying to it a pressure of 3 to 4 kilograms per square centimeter, and each block is joined to the others by walls. On the seam side of the construction, the builders used watertight metal casings and injected compressed air, so that they were able to work below the level of water. The tower was assembled using wooden scaffolding and small steam cranes mounted onto the tower itself. The assembly of the first level was achieved by the use of 20 temporary wooden scaffolds, 30 meters high, and 4 larger scaffolds of 40 meters each. Sandboxes and hydraulic jacks, replaced after use by permanent wedges, allowed the metal girders to be positioned to an accuracy of 1 millimeter. On December 7, 1887, the joining of the major girders up to the first level was completed. The pieces were hauled up by steam cranes, which themselves climbed up the tower as they went along using the runners to be used for the tower's lift. It only took 5 months to build the foundations and 21 months to finish assembling the metal pieces of the tower. Considering the rudimentary means available at that period, this could be considered record speed. The assembly of the tower was a marvel of precision, as all chroniclers of the period agree. The construction work began in January 1887 and was finished on March 31, 1889. On the narrow platform at the top, Eiffel received its decoration from the Legion of Honor. Public opinions. Even before the end of its construction, the tower was already at the heart of much debate. Enveloped in criticism from the biggest names in the world of art and literature, the tower managed to stand its ground and achieve the success it deserved. Various pamphlets and articles were published throughout the year of 1886. The protest against the Tower of Monsieur Eiffel, published in the newspaper Le Temps, is addressed to the World's Fair's Director of Works, Monsieur Alphand. It is signed by several big names from the world of literature and arts: Charles Gounod, Guy de Maupassant, Alexandre Dumas Jr., François Coppée, Leconte de Lisle, Sully Prudhomme, William Bouguereau, Ernest Meissonier, Victoria Sardou, Charles Garnier, and others to whom posterity has been less kind. Other satirists pushed the violent diatribe even further, hurling insults like "this truly tragic street lamp," "this mass of iron gymnasium apparatus, incomplete, confused, and deformed." This high and skinny pyramid of iron ladders. This giant ungainly skeleton upon a base that looks built to carry a colossal monument of Cyclops, but which just peters out into a ridiculous thin shape like a factory chimney. A half-built factory pipe, a carcass waiting to be fleshed out from freestone or brick, a funnel-shaped grill, a hole-riddled suppository. However, once the tower was finished and the criticisms burned itself out in the presence of the completed masterpiece, and in the light of the enormous popular success with which it was greeted, it received 2 million visitors during the World's Fair of 1889. Here are a couple of things you may not have known before watching this video. Number 1. The Eiffel Tower was once yellow. In fashionable Paris, even the Eiffel Tower must keep up with the style trends. Over the decades, the Iron Lady has changed her looks with the application of a spectrum of paint colors. When it opened in 1889, the Eiffel Tower sported a reddish-brown color. A decade later, it was coated in yellow paint. The tower was also yellow-brown and chestnut-brown before the adoption of the current specially mixed Eiffel Tower brown in 1968. Every 7 years, painters apply 60 tons of paint to the tower to keep it looking new. The tower is painted in 3 shades, progressively lighter with elevation, in order to augment the structure's silhouette against the canvas of the Parisian sky. Number 2. It was built to celebrate the centennial of the French Revolution. Organizations of the 1889 Exposition Universelle, which commemorated the 100-year anniversary of the fall of the Bastille and the launch of the French Revolution. Number 3. For 4 decades, it was the world's tallest structure. At 986 feet, the Eiffel Tower was nearly double the height of the world's previous tallest structure, the 555 feet Washington Monument, when it opened in 1889. It would not be surpassed until the completion of the 1,046 feet Chrysler Building in New York in 1930. Although the Eiffel Tower eclipsed the Chrysler Building in height with the addition of an antenna in 1957, it still trailed behind another Gotham skyscraper, the Empire State Building. Number 4. The Eiffel Tower was once the world's largest billboard. When dusk fell across Paris between 1925 and 1936, 250,000 colored bulbs attached to 3 sides of the tower steeple illuminated to spell the 100 feet vertical letters of the French automobile company Citroën. The advertisement blazed so brightly that it was visible from nearly 20 miles away, and Charles Lindbergh used it as a beacon when he landed in Paris on his 1927 solo transatlantic flight. Number 5. Eiffel Design part of another famous landmark. When the initial designer of the Statue of Liberty's interior elements died suddenly in 1879, French sculptor Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi hired Eiffel as his replacement. Already renowned as a structural engineer and railway bridge designer, Eiffel designed the skeletal support system to which the statue's copper skin is affixed. Today, a scale model of the Statue of Liberty stands on an island in the River Seine in the shadow of the Eiffel Tower. Number 6. Parisian artists petitioned against the monstrous structure. Although now a worldwide symbol of romance, the radical design of the Eiffel Tower inspired anything but love in the hearts of 300 prominent Parisian artists and intellectuals who signed the following manifesto that ran in the Le Temps newspaper on Valentine's Day in 1887. Be writers, painters, sculptors, architects, passionate lovers of the beauty, until now intact, of Paris, hereby protest with all our might, with all our indignation, in the name of the French taste gone unrecognized, in the name of French art and history under threat, against the construction, in the very heart of our capital, of the useless and monstrous Eiffel Tower. The Screed even said that the gigantic black factory chimney was so low that even commercial-minded America does not want it. Number 7. Radio saved the Eiffel Tower from destruction. Since Eiffel footed 80% of the tower's construction cost, he was permitted to have the structure stand for 20 years in order to recoup his investment before it passed into the hands of the Parisian government, which planned to disassemble it for scrap metal. Seeking a way to prove the structure's strategic utility in a bid to save it, Eiffel erected an antenna atop the tower and financed experiments with wireless telegraphy that began in 1898. The value of tower in sending and receiving wireless messages, particularly for French military, caused the city to renew Eiffel's concession when it expired in 1909. Today, more than 100 antennas on the tower beam radio and television broadcasts around the world. Number 8. The Eiffel Tower contributed to the capture of Mata Hari. During World War I, the French military used the tower's wireless station to intercept enemy messages from Berlin. In 1914, the French were able to organize a counterattack during the Battle of the Marne after secretly learning that the German army was halting its advance. 3 years later, the station atop the Eiffel Tower intercepted a coded message between Germany and Spain that offered details about Operation H-21. Based in part on this message, the French arrested, convicted, and executed Mata Hari for spying on behalf of Germany. Number 9. The tower housed a scientific laboratory. Eiffel engraved the names of 72 of the country's scientists in the tower's first-level gallery, and atop the structure he installed a laboratory that was used by himself and French scientists to study astronomy, meteorology, aerodynamics, and physiology, and test experiments such as Foucault's pendulum. In 1909, Eiffel installed an aerodynamic wind tunnel at the base of the tower that carried out thousands of tests, including those on Wright brothers airplanes and Porsche automobiles. Number 10. Daredevils have died attempting aerial feats at the tower. Using everything from parachutes to bungee cords, adventurers for decades have used the tower to stage daring stunts. Not that all thrill-seekers have defied death, however. In 1912, French tailor Franz Richel attempted to fly from the tower's first floor with a spring-loaded parachute suit, but crashed 187 feet to the ground instead. 14 years later, aviator Leon Coulot was killed attempting to fly his plane beneath the span of the tower when it became entangled in the aerial from the wireless station and crashed in a ball of flames. Improvements on the model. So what could I have done to make this model better? From the results of my prints, I should have made the girders a lot thicker than they currently are. In this video, I have them made at 1mm, when it should be around 5mm or more. Also, I have not modeled the interior structures of the tower. While this is not affecting the top two portions of the tower very much, the bottom legs are being affected a lot. The individual girders are simply too thin for the print to work properly. As you can see from the results of the prints here, the top two sections of the tower came out relatively okay. They're not perfect, but at least the girders are intact and decently printed. If you look at this bottom part though, it is just bad. The girders are too thin as supports as print gets built up. Also, the slant is not helping. Since there are so many different Eiffel Tower models out there in the world, I did not really fix this current model. Instead, I printed a pre-existing model from Thingiverse. Even though I know that I have missed some details that could have made my model better, I was still amazed at the details of this model from Thingiverse. Sure, it's the same pattern repeated again and again, but it would still take me a lot more time in Rhino. I still have so much to learn. And I hope you guys learned something from this video too. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button down below, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye for now.